Morning, all. All right, so there's just the two games tonight in the National Hockey League. So the preview goes with the news video. And honestly, from here, there's so few days with four games. 4 games is the cutoff where I say, all right, preview gets its own video. Pretty soon, previews will just be mixed in with news of the day. And there's two games tonight in the National Hockey League. The Battle of Florida starts things off at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Tampa Bay, of course, looking to stay alive. Florida looking to close it out. Tampa Bay won the last game to avoid the sweep. If they win tonight, it would have to put some doubt in Florida's minds, wouldn't it? Vasilevsky, 3.01 goals against average, 899 save percentage. He was very good in the last game. Hagel's had a solid run this series, 3 goals and an assist. Kucherov, 6 assists, 7 shots, so he's due for a goal. So's Hedman. He has 6 assists as well, 9 shots for Victor Hedman. On the Florida side, Bobrovsky, his stats took a beating in the last game. He has a 3.21 goals against average, 874 save percentage. Sam Reinhart, 3 goals, 18 shots for Sam Reinhart. Matthew Tkachuk, 3 goals, 4 assists for 7 points. Tkachuk's been fantastic. Montour's been pretty good on the blue line. 1 goal, 2 assists thus far in the 4 games of this series. So we'll see who wins that tonight. You guys can let me know your pick. And then at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, Dallas looks to keep a pattern going where a home team hasn't won a game in this series. Vegas looks to change the narrative and go up 3-1, currently leading the series 2-1. Ottinger, 2.5 goals against average, 892 save percentage. The save percentage has improved after that rough first game he had. Stankoven, 1 assist, 7 shots. Doesn't tell you how well he's playing. He's playing quite well at both ends of the ice as well. Wyatt Johnston, this series has kind of been a star-making series for him. He has 2 goals and an assist for 12 shots, or with 12 shots. Harley, no points, and 6 shots for him in this series. So there's a lot of good young talent in Dallas. This is why, if they don't win this series, it's disappointing, like really disappointing. But there's still a lot of hope for the future. On the Vegas side, it's win now. Win back-to-back, right? Logan Thompson, 2.14 goals against average, 927 save percentage. Eichel, 2 goals, 3 assists. He's starting to do the beast mode thing he did all the time in Buffalo some years back. Where you just, good luck getting the puck off of his stick. He just goes on little tours of the offensive zone and nobody can catch him. So we'll see if he does that tonight as well. Hurdle just has the 1 goal, but he has 6 shots, so he's due for at least another point tonight, I would think. Noah Hannafin's fit in really well in Vegas. I totally understand why he signed the extension there. 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points thus far. And so we'll see how many other players that they've acquired that they're going to hold on to once the offseason rolls around. But they're not worried about that right now. And let me know who you think wins this game in the comment section below. So the Vezina Finalists are known, and they're not necessarily a huge surprise. Bobrovsky of the Florida Panthers had an excellent season. So did Demko in Vancouver. I'm mildly surprised Demko's a finalist just because he was injured for a significant portion of the season. Hellebuck's going to win this. He's the other finalist. And if the Jets are out in the first round, it would continue a tradition of the guys who win the Vezina Trophy not going very far in the playoffs. You can go look it up. For whatever reason, the Vezina winner, those teams, I guess, rely on their goaltender. And while there are some examples of teams that have done quite well with the Vezina winner in the playoffs, they sometimes come up short, and sometimes it's early in the playoffs as well. Ullmark, of course, last year was the Vezina winner, and Boston was out in the first round. So that's just the most recent example. But I did do a video on that at one point in time where I looked at trophy winners and whether or not there's a correlation with success in the playoffs. Spoiler alert, there really isn't. So Toronto news, and Toronto's on the board twice. The second time it is technically the Marlies, but I don't have a Marlies magnet. But Austin Matthews, he's still under the weather. This is not food poisoning. So the symptoms may be food poisoning-like, but it's not food poisoning. Food poisoning will hit you for that day, and then you're really weak the second day. At least I am. And of course, if you're a professional athlete and you're off your feet for a day or so, it can throw you off your game. But it definitely sounds like what Matthews is dealing with is hanging around. It's not food poisoning. And so he may not play in Game 5, which could be huge for Toronto, of course, if he doesn't play and if they get knocked out. He's not at practice today, for an example, but he did go with the team to Boston. And the starter for Game 5, Sheldon Keefe isn't tipping his hand there. I think it's probably going to be Wall. I don't know if that's going to make a huge difference to Toronto's odds in that game. I don't think Samsonov was the problem in the last one. I think there were problems with that team, more than a couple. Special teams have definitely been an issue for Toronto in the series, and there's already a lot of talk about who's going to get traded, whose heads are going to roll. Sheldon Keefe, I think if they don't win the next game in Boston, it's probably his last game behind the bench in Toronto. Whether that's fair or not, we can have that discussion if/when that happens. But we'll see. Vancouver. So this is an interesting record. They've tied their own record. So they've had 3 wins in this playoffs. One by Demko, one by DeSmith, and one by Shelovs. And they tie their own record from 2004, where they got eliminated in 7 games in the first round. Cloutier won a game, Hedberg won a game, and then Auld won a game. So, for anybody who remembers that series. And it's interesting, too, because Cloutier was a starting goaltender for the Canucks that gets remembered a lot for getting lit up in the playoffs, but he was usually hurt by the time the playoffs rolled around, and he wouldn't necessarily disclose it. And so we would watch him play and think, man, his reflexes aren't there, and the side-to-side play, it's not there. And then you'd find out after he was struggling with various injuries. So, yeah, the Vancouver Canucks kind of repeating a process. They're just hoping they have better success than they did in 2004. So Kyle Clifford does not like Boko Imama, and vice versa. This is apparently a confrontation that's been going on back to the regular season in the American Hockey League between the Belleville forward, Belleville, of course, the AHL team for Ottawa, where Imama plays, and Kyle Clifford playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs AHL franchise, the Marlies. So Belleville knocks out the Marlies in the playoffs, and in the handshake line, Clifford decides that's enough of that, and kind of goes after Imama, and the officials had to jump in and pull them apart. Boko basically saying, we were just keeping it to ourselves, but Toronto, Clifford, apparently some stuff was said by Imama, and Clifford just couldn't let that go in the handshake line. So it is not unheard of for things to go on in the handshake line that shouldn't. People make a huge deal out of it at the NHL level. This is the first time that I've seen in some time that happen at the AHL level. It doesn't mean it doesn't. It just doesn't get as much attention when something happens in the AHL for obvious reasons. But there's the possibility that Imama gets called up to Ottawa next season, obviously. But there's also the possibility these guys are both in the AHL next year, and they keep this going, unless Clifford, at this point in time in his career, decides, active career is done. We'll see what happens, but it definitely, it was a feisty exchange between the two as we get set for the next round of the playoffs in the AHL. So, TJ Oshie, so jumping over to a game from last night, it was reported after the game that TJ Oshie in that game 4 for the Capitals played with a broken hand. So Oshie was one of the players that I'd been talking about how the production just wasn't there. Playing with a broken hand, that'll hurt the production. Absolutely. Makes sense. But for the Washington Capitals, a lot of questions are going to be asked now about what the team should do, what their approach should be for next season. I will definitely be discussing that when I get through all the teams that missed the playoffs. Then we get into the teams that fell out of the playoffs, who made it, and then, lose in the first round. But yeah, Oshie played with a broken hand. A lot of courage shown there. And we may see a player for Winnipeg playing with a broken bone in their next game as well. So we'll go over to Winnipeg on this one as well. Rick Bowness saying that the 3-1 deficit they have against the Avs is self-inflicted. So he's not making excuses. He's not pointing fingers at officials. He's owning it and saying that the team taking penalties and committing the turnovers that they have been, that'll do you in against the Avs. That they're not playing a full 60 minutes. In last night's game, there was like 10 minutes of a period that he liked. The rest of it, he wasn't a fan of. Winnipeg is just looking completely overwhelmed with Colorado, which makes sense. Colorado has a very deep roster, and when they get rolling like that, they're darn near impossible to stop. So for the Winnipeg Jets, they're going to have to hope for one of those unlikely 3-1 comebacks. They happen, not very often, but they're going to have to cut down the penalties. They're going to have to stop turning the puck over, because when you're turning the puck over to guys like Makar, McKinnon, Rantanen, Lehkonen, Nichushkin, it really, Middlestad's playing great for them as well. Taves, there's so many. I could just name off basically the whole roster. You just don't want to be doing that. So we'll see if that changes. But Nemesnikov left hurt last night, took a puck to the face, and it's been revealed he has a fractured cheekbone. Despite that, Rick Bowness saying he wouldn't rule out Nemesnikov playing the next game because he's pretty tough. And if he plays with a broken cheekbone, same respect I would give Oshie for playing with a broken hand. Obviously, he'd need to wear the full face cage rather than the regular helmet with the visor. And I'm sure there will be new fans to hockey wondering, well, why don't they just wear like full face protection so they don't take the puck to the face and get broken cheeks or potentially lose an eye? Because hockey players think it's kind of uncomfortable to wear it. You don't get, your vision isn't as good when you wear either the whole fishbowl or you wear the cage. So they just take pucks to the face, and it's scary. It's a scary situation that we have in the National Hockey League, and I don't think the NHL is going to change the rules on protection either. It was tough enough to get players to wear visors. I remember when those were grandfathered in, and there was a lot of kicking and screaming about that. Now the guys wear visors, but a lot of them angle those visors up. They're not doing anything. And I don't understand the point of having a visor rule if they don't have to wear it properly. Well, I got to move it up past my eyes so I can see. That's a problem. It's just it just feels like you're then protecting your helmet, not your face. So at any rate, all the best to Nemesnikov, whatever happens with them there, and other players that have taken pucks to the face in these playoffs. It is a tough game. It really is a war of attrition. Very often the team that's left standing at the end of the playoffs is the one that's healthy. Going back to last year's Stanley Cup, that was a big part of what helped Vegas was they were healthy for the playoff run. I know people get mad about the LTIR thing and everything, but they were healthy for the playoff run. And there you go. It definitely does help. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.